Hello everyone. In this presentation, we would understand the differences between VB and VB.NET. Visual Basic Language evolved up to version 6 on its own. From the introduction of .NET framework, VB.NET language evolved. In this following podcast, we would understand how VB.NET significantly differs from VB6 based on various headings or topics. I request you all to listen to the podcast carefully.
Hello students, in this podcast we are going to talk about the differences between VB.NET and VB6. We all know certainly that VB.NET is being regarded as the successor of VB6. VB6 was typically being looked at as a front-end development tool and also as a language, but VB.NET is a lot more refined, empowered, and I would say it's one of the very best releases of VB version. Alright, we are going to talk about the differences having 8 headings. The first heading or the category that we have is Namespace Availability. Well, we all know as to what a namespace is all about. A namespace is nothing but logical grouping of related classes under one heading or one grouping. We have a variety or humpty number of namespaces available for VB.NET, whereas namespaces are not at all available for VB6. Namespaces are available in VB.NET because VB.NET is one of the languages or technologies that is available in Visual Studio .NET IDE. We can make use of all .NET framework components that are applicable for Visual Studio .NET in VB.NET as well. The next heading would be the Runtime Environment for VB.NET as well as for VB6. When we're talking about the Runtime Environment for VB.NET, it is the common language runtime wherein the intermediate code is being sent to CLR and the JIT compiler receives the MSIL code and then converts that into the native code, specifically targeted for the running hardware environment. But when you're talking about VB6 runtime environment, there is no CLR involved. All it is required would be VB6 runtime DLL files. Even such DLL files could be downloaded from the web as well. Therefore, there is a whole lot of differences when you're talking about the CLR version of executing the VB.NET programs and then the interpreted version of executing the VB6 programs using the runtime DLL files. Okay, good. The next category would be on programming language paradigm. The word paradigm has this meaning. It refers to the generally accepted perspective of a particular discipline at a given point in time. Going by this, we learned that VB6 was being regarded as an event-driven programming language. It did not have most of the object-oriented concepts. If at all it only had classes and modules. Besides that, no concept of groups was implemented in VB6. But when you're talking about the programming language paradigm of VB.NET, this is absolutely an object-oriented programming language. All OOPS concepts can be deployed, can be made use of in VB.NET. Concepts like classes, objects, inheritance, polymorphism, operator overloading, and other stuff. The next difference could be understood with this heading named Background Compilation. Well, we know that it is the CLR, which is the execution engine for all .NET supported languages. As we code some app in VB.NET, there is a background compilation taking place, as it is a case with your manipulation of a document using MS Word. If you make a drastic mistake, you can find the word being underlined with red color italicized lines. If it is going to be a punctuation mistake, you can find that can be a green color italicized underlining beneath the particular word. We say something happens in the background as we compose a letter. Some of the mistakes are being ejected or being indicated. The same philosophy is true in the case of VB.NET. As one valid VB.NET statement is being composed by the programmer, if it is okay, no indication is being made. If there is a hitch-up with a particular statement, then immediately the background compiler informs the nature of the error. For example, you declare a variable and then the variable is yet to be used. You can find a green color italicized line beneath the variable names. Such background compilation is available in VB.NET. But when you're talking about VB6, which is typically an interpreted languages, to refresh your memories, an interpreted programming language is something wherein each statements are interpreted first and then it is being converted into object code from the source code, then only the interpretation process keeps progressing. We know that, okay? So as it is an interpreted programming language, there is no background compilation available in VB6. Then we have the next heading with which we can understand the differences as availability of intelligence. We know how important intelligence for a human being is. In a similar manner, intelligence plays a vital role in VB.NET. Intelligence is responsible for the boxes that open up and provide ready reference or help to the programmer as he is coding or as she is coding. Such intelligence is not available in VB6. Now, you might ask me a question as to what kind of difference would it make. Now think about a situation when you have a helper who helps you proactively every time you happen to need some kind of help. So much of your worries would be reduced, your tensions would be avoided. In a similar manner, as VB.NET provides ready reference, okay, with a popping up boxes, okay, the programmer is quite freed with the routine tensions or the need to go and refer to the external resources. So such advantage is available in VB.NET, which is typically not present in VB6. The next difference can be understood by having this heading: suitability of apps development. When we're talking about Visual Studio.NET at the outset, okay, the whole idea is developing all types of apps by being in one IDE. The same logic is true when we are talking about VB.NET. Whether it's a console apps, whether it's a Windows app or web app or an app to be used in the mobile devices. Mobile devices means Windows supported mobile devices. We can very easily make use of VB.NET to develop such an app. So we would say that versatility is there when it comes to apps development using VB.NET. But when we are talking about developing apps using VB6, I think the kind of versatility that we have in VB.NET is not applicable there, or not it is there with VB6. Okay, the kind of apps that we develop typically using VB6 would be like this: WinForms app that would typically run on LAN or run on client server architecture. Then we can develop DLL apps, or even we can develop an app as an ActiveX object and make it run on the internet. Okay, but at the outset, VB.NET has versatility, okay, in apps development, and it is suitable to develop any type of apps, which is totally absent in VB6. The next heading can be understood having something called as short circuit logic. This is a kind of magic that we have in VB.NET. You may ask me as to what a magic is all about. Now think about a situation wherein you may have to take up a competitive examination which has got three phases. Only when the first two phases are being cleared by the candidate, the candidate's third phase or the third paper would be evaluated. Assuming that the candidate has failed in the very first phase or the first paper in a series of examination conducted on that particular day, there is no point in correcting or in evaluating the other two phases or the other two papers. Okay, it is pointless, right? In a similar manner, if a part of a statement turns to be false or turns to be true, there is no point in trying to execute the remainder of that particular statement. This would save the resources. It could be CPU's time or it could be memory. So such short circuiting logic is available in VB.NET. So what makes it happen or what makes it possible? It's the keywords like and, also, and, or else. Let me repeat that. It's and, also, or else. These two keywords actually help us in achieving short circuiting logic when we're talking about using something in if statements. But this is totally absent when you're talking about VB6. So this is one good point about VB.NET. Then the last important, let's say, heading, the eighth one, would be lexical changes and changes in data types. When we're talking about lexical changes, okay, we're talking about how restricted are we in VB.NET that would lead to security, that would lead to program readability. I would say in VB.NET, it's on the high. It's more when compared with VB6. Yep, when you talk about option explicit aspect, okay, we say that in VB6 the option explicit is by default set to off value, OFF, but in VB.NET by default the option explicit is being set to on value. Now almost all of you might come out with a question: what kind of impact would this option explicit on or option explicit off would trigger? That should be a beautiful question if at all you ask me. Okay, let's go back to the answer for that particular question. If you say option explicit on, which is by default on in VB.NET, necessarily all variables must have been declared, and there is no implicit conversions between different let's say variables belonging to different data types. So you may have to use functions like conversion functions like cint convert into integer, cstring convert into string, and stuff like that. But in VB6, okay, the option explicit is off by default. So you are free to use a variable even without declaring it. You may find it quite easier, quite good stuff, but it is not a goodie. It's a bad thing, okay, actually. Because without realizing, you end up using a couple of variables, and that might, let's say, cause some kind of bugs. So the program readability or even bug fixing would be quite difficult, okay, in VB6, which would not be the case with VB.NET. Okay, so we have understood the differences between VB and VB.NET having these headings. Let us revisit it very quickly. The first one was the namespaces availability. Then the second one, runtime environment. The third one, programming language paradigm. The fourth one, background compilation. The fifth one, availability of IntelliSense. The sixth one, suitability of apps development. The seventh one, short circuit logic. The eighth one, lexical changes and data type changes. Well, let me talk about the changes in data type. I just wanted to do it at the last. We have two important data types that are being skipped in VB.NET. We had variant as well as currency as two different data types in VB6, but those two are being excluded in VB.NET. But we have something quite interesting, okay, in VB.NET. That's called as decimal. It's a new and a very useful data type to be used for financial domain. Okay, so these are the 8 major differences between VB.NET and VB6. I hope you would have actually understood it. If you do have any difficulty, you can either send me an email or meet me in person. I will be happy to clarify that for you. Alright, thank you so much. Do well. I will catch up with you all in the next podcast series. Bye bye.